Alright guys, welcome back for another video on HAIKYU Fly High, and today we are going to talk about the free SP character who everyone hopefully would have obtained by now, which is going to be SP Ginjima. Now to get him for free, you just need to log in for 16 days out of the 30-day event that we have right now. Well, sorry, 28 days event that we have right now. So even if you happen to miss a few days, just remember to log in every day from now on, and you should still have hopefully a chance to get him for free. Okay, this is basically the number one priority if you're playing in this game seriously. Okay, just literally log in. You don't even have to do anything else, just literally log into the game, and afterwards you will be able to get this character for free. So everyone, please start doing that now if you have already been skipping a few days. Now, I haven't actually talked about this character at all because obviously the focus and the highlight for the last 2 weeks is obviously on SP Hoshimi Korai, and obviously everyone should be summoning for Korai rather than Ginjima, especially considering we'll be able to get him for free. However, now that we actually do have him, I still want to cover him because he is actually not a bad character in my opinion. It's just a bit of unfortunate timing that he came at the same time as SP Hoshimi Korai, who everyone should be going for as first priority. But other than that, he's actually not a bad character. So I kind of want to do him some justice by actually going through how good he is. Okay. So he's actually in the game, so we can actually talk through him one by one, his skills. So first of all, he does have a power attack and also receive label. So that basically means he is somewhat flexible enough in speciality, in team speciality, if you actually want to counter the opponent. And that is also something you should be working towards because in his ultimate, which I'll talk about eventually, when you actually counter the opponent's speciality, you would actually be able to increase your attack technique as well. Okay, so that's something you just want to bear in mind. Now let's start off with his skill 1. So first of all, he will increase his power attack stats, pretty standard for a lot of character. And then the next thing is that when the opponent receive result is not bad, you would then be able to increase your spike power. This can be up to 5 stacks and last for a whole match as well. Receive result is not bad. That's actually very easy to fulfill because if the enemy receive result is actually bad, you probably won that point already. So this is actually very easy for you to trigger, and you can basically stack up to 50%, which lasts for a whole match as well, which is absolutely amazing. Then his skill 2 is that when he doesn't receive, what's going to happen is your next spike power is going to further increase by another 40%. Okay. Once again, very nice. So in terms of rotation, etc., you probably want to start him off at the back so he actually receive a few times. Also bear in mind, this you don't actually need to spike immediately after you receive, unlike for example Sakusa's memory, that kind of condition, because the spike power increase actually lasts all the way until your next spike. Okay, so it's more similar to SP Hinata's skill 3 in the sense that you can literally just have him receive and save up that spike power till when you actually need to spike. Okay. Now for his skill 3, so this is kind of his core mechanic. Now when he spikes, his power attack is going to increase by 100% of his quick attack stat. It's going to be capped, however you are actually able to increase that. And basically what this means is that he is going to be somewhat viable for certain quick attacking speciality teams where you will be able to buff up your spiker's quick attack stat. This kind of just makes sure he's still able to somewhat benefit from those. You guys can probably already guess what kind of specialty we're talking about since he's a Naruto member, but that's basically the idea here. And then the next sentence says is that when he performs his first 2 spikes each game, your awareness is going to increase to 100% and your strength is also going to increase to 30%. Okay, so basically this makes sure you have a guaranteed crit when you actually spike for the very first 2 times. Then when he does actually spike, if it's actually your first spike in the game, it's spike ultimate in the game, what's going to happen is that you'll be further increasing your power attack stats, okay? So if you actually use him to start off with the very first spike, it's actually going to be really strong. And then for his ultimate hand, he's going to do a power spike. The base is only going to 260%. However, bear in mind, from his skill 1, he can increase that by another 50. From his skill 2, he can increase by 40. So that's 90% in total. So actually, you can actually get a 350% multiplier for his ultimate hand. And then the next thing, which is also going to be quite interesting, is the enemy's block and also receive player stamina. It's going to reduce by 8 points. This is actually a really strong ability, as we will see later on with his skill rating 4. And it's also somewhat unique as well. Not many characters are actually able to do that. There are a few SSR characters who are able to do that. The main one I'm thinking of is going to be Mad Dog. However, in the SP character category or the URSP rarity, not I don't think any other character is actually capable of reducing the enemy stamina consumption. So this can actually make a very, very strong point, especially now that a lot of characters are gonna have, for example, Kunami on the bench, so they will never run the stamina. This is probably only one of the few ways you can actually get a stamina advantage over your opponent. So that's kind of what makes this character actually really, really interesting, and what I would actually consider to be his own unique selling point. Okay, and then the last one is what I mentioned earlier. When your specialty actually counter the opponent, your attack techniques are also going to increase by 20%. Now, if we move on to his skill resonance, so first of all, he's not going to be affected by debuff. This is actually a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that eventually, because he's a Narizaki member, and there are actually 4 Narizaki SP character in the game. Well, technically there are 5 Narizaki SP character in the game now. But if you do actually want to play a Narizaki school team alongside with SP Kita actually have a way of removing debuff, and when they remove debuff, they actually also give your teammates a buff at the same time. However, because Ginjima cannot actually be affected by Kita's debuff, this can make it somewhat annoying because you can't actually benefit from your own SP Kita teammates buffing as a result. So this was kind of why I say it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Obviously, it's nice. For example, if the enemy have a Kita, then the enemy Kita's debuff wouldn't affect you, but it also means you can't actually benefit from your own Kita's buff. So that's kind of why this one is very controversial. I'm not too sure how I feel about this part. And then the next thing is that when he does do a critical spike, your power is going to further increase by another 60%. And remember, his first 2 spike in the game is going to be guaranteed to be crit because he will be getting 100% awareness buff. So this all of a sudden is looking very, very strong. Remember, this is another power spike multiplier buff. So we already have a addition of 90% from his skill 1 plus skill 2. Now you get another 60%. So this is literally a whooping 150% power multiplier buff in total, which is absolutely crazy. Now, skill 4, this is another very interesting one. So his ultimate cooldown is going to reduce down to 4 necrosis, and this actually makes it very, very strong in the sense that, remember, whenever you spike, you can actually reduce 2 of the enemy opponent's stamina by 8 points. And now if you're actually able to almost semi-spam this, because your cooldown is only 4 necrosis, you can actually drain the enemy's stamina consumption very, very fast. And that makes it very, very interesting in the near future when, for example, we have the likes of Kenma, who is able to turn perfect or bad receive into perfect receive, etc. The rallies are going to become really, really long, and therefore stamina is actually going to be a particular concern in those long-lasting matches. And if you're actually able to reduce essentially wipe out 16 stamina every 4 necrosis from the opponent team, that's actually really, really strong in my opinion against those kind of Kenma teams. So that's kind of why I do actually feel like he does have a bit of a really, really strong anti-meta edge to him as skill resonance 4. Okay. And then the next thing is that the first 2 spike, which is going to be Gigabuff, now it's going to be changed to first 3 spike. And also, when he does spike, your next spike power is also going to increase by another 50%. Okay, so all around it's pretty nice, but the biggest selling point to me is just reduction of your ultimate cooldown to only 4 necrosis. Okay. So that's a quick rundown, but how good is actually SP Ginjima? Now, like I said, as Skeleton 4, I do feel like he does have a very, very interesting meta or anti-meta edge in PvP, specifically against Kenma team, due to the stamina reduction. So that's definitely very strong and interesting as Skeleton 4. However, I know vast majority of people wouldn't have summoned for him, and that's the right decision as well, by the way. So you would have only have gotten 1 copy of him. However, even in those kind of cases, he's still a very, very strong character because remember, what he's capable of doing is that he has probably one of the strongest first spike in the game. If you just take a look how much he has built in him, even at no dupes, what he essentially have is that he has a skill multiplier buff, he has power attack buff, especially if you actually for the first spike in the game as well. It is actually a whooping 100% power attack buff. He has a built-in guaranteed crit for the first 2 spikes as well, and then also strength buff as well as attack technique buff when you actually counter the enemy. So what that basically means is that he actually have a self buff in every single category in the damage formula. So he can actually put up a really strong spike. Obviously, the shortcoming for this is that it's probably only going to be the very first spike in the match, which is going to be strong, or maybe the first 2 spikes, because it can still be guaranteed crit. Afterwards, he's going to feel very lackluster because he will literally be missing half of the kit. It also makes his potential build somewhat awkward because you probably don't want to build him with awareness because otherwise it would be wasted for the first 2 spikes. But then what are you going to do for the third spike onwards if you do not actually have any awareness in his potential build, etc., right? So it can actually get somewhat complicated to actually build him for the third spike onwards. However, what I actually think he's best suited for, especially for the free-to-play players, is that take advantage of the fact that he is suitable for 2 different speciality. Literally just have him on so that you can get a extra counter speciality over the opponent. So it's one more, 5% extra buff for the speciality counter. Because remember, for every single label character over the opponent, you're going to get additional buff. So what you can do is just literally have him on the field, have him to do his massive giga buff first spike of the game, and then literally sub him out for someone else for the remainder of the match. Okay, so as a free character, I still think it's actually very strong choices, and for vast majority of players, he can probably deserve a place in your starting lineup a bit just for him to be subbed off probably from the second rally onwards, but definitely do give him a try. He is not a character to be slept on. Okay, so that's my thoughts on Ginjima and also whether or not I think he's going to be any good. Let me know what you guys think, and also is he going to be a part of your team?